Tonight on To The Point, we're hearing from a Sacramento businessman who took on homelessness near his buildings by himself. Tonight, he's drawing parallels between his decisions and a lawsuit filed against the city earlier this week. Plus, the president heads to the picket lines, Biden's promise to the tens of thousands that are walking off the job at car-making plants. And what's the difference between Latino and Hispanic? And can you use them interchangeably? We take the time to explain where each word comes from and how to properly use them. California turns on its homeless population. That headline caught our eye today. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Alex Bell. It's from a Newsweek article published this week following a flurry of developments in California's homeless crisis. From the Sacramento County District Attorney suing the city of Sacramento for failing to keep streets safe to California cities and counties asking the U.S. Supreme Court to step in, all of which we have covered right here on To The Point. And now Becca Habegger joins us with an update on a story that we brought you last year about a man taking matters into his own hands.
Yeah, Alex, back in May of 2022, we introduced you to a Sacramento business owner blocking a public street to keep homeless encampments and the criminal activity he saw accompanying them away from his properties. He reached out to me this week after seeing news of the DA's lawsuit against the city of Sacramento. He says he relates that he has been paying for private security now for 17 months because he can't trust the city to enforce its own rules. These are the scenes from along Railroad Drive in Sacramento before May of 2022.
Thefts, burglaries.
Rich Eaton owns 3 properties here, which he rents to commercial tenants, and says this dead-end street attracted homeless encampments and criminal activity.
We spent over $200,000 fixing fencing, replacing copper, air conditioning, windows, several fences burnt, vandalism, and attempted burglaries.
So after the city cleared the encampment in the spring of 2022, he took matters into his own hands and closed this public street, as we reported at the time.
Railroad Drive is open to all but the nefarious and the RVs that attract that element.
He has since removed the barricades. Vehicles can still access this road, but 24/7 private security is on constant alert, and Eaton says it's working.
We have no crimes, no losses, no break-ins. We're fully rented. Our tenants are happy. To the tune of $20,000 a month is what we're paying, but we have to pay it. If we didn't pay it, we'd be vacant, and we'd have vacant buildings, and it would be third world Sacramento as it was before May 1st.
The community is at a breaking point.
Earlier this week, Sacramento County District Attorney Tien Ho filed a lawsuit against the city of Sacramento, saying it has failed to keep streets safe and enforce anti-camping ordinances. Eaton filed a similar lawsuit early last year, which is still pending.
You have to enforce the laws. Like, you can't just turn an eye because they're unhoused. They're taking advantage of the city's lack of response.
Frivolous lawsuits.
Bob Erlenbush is executive director of the Sacramento Regional Coalition to End Homelessness. He says he understands people's frustration with the unhoused crisis.
The city and the county have moved incredibly slowly. Even though got to give them credit for creating more programs and expanding the number of shelter beds, significantly expanding funding, etc.
Eaton says he's not anti-homeless, he is anti-crime. Erlenbush says if people are committing crimes,
they need to be held accountable.
But he believes the DA's lawsuit goes too far and says housing for Sacramento County's nearly 10,000 unhoused people should be the focus.
We need elected officials to have the political will to begin to address the issue to scale.
And Becca, we know Bob isn't the only advocate that's critical of the DA's lawsuit, right?
Yeah, Alex, there is a group called the Sacramento Homeless Union, which represents some 2,700 unhoused folks in the area. They have filed to intervene in the DA's lawsuit, not siding with the DA or the city, but rather asking to be included in the lawsuit as a third party. Since at the end of the day, the lawsuit is about the homeless crisis, and this union represents people experiencing homelessness. We should add, by the way, the city of Sacramento objects to the DA's lawsuit, and they say it's a distraction from the real work of getting homelessness solutions on the table. And they say they welcome the challenge to see the DA in court.
All right, Becca, thank you so much. We appreciate you following this. All right, public works employees in the city of South Lake Tahoe took some time out to clean a meadow that is frequented by homeless people. So they found more than 200 cubic yards of trash and over 100 propane tanks there. The group broke down a man-made structure that was causing a fire hazard and are working to fix walking paths in the area. New tonight, we learned that an employee at a Stockton charter school was arrested and booked into jail after a parent found explicit messages that he allegedly had sent to a student. So the man, 44-year-old Eric Whiteside, was put on leave the day after the school found out about the investigation. He did pass a background check when he was initially hired. The San Joaquin County Sheriff's Office says they found at least one other victim and are asking parents at the Able Charter School to talk to their kids. So if you know anything about this case, make sure that you reach out to the sheriff's office. And this man, Fred Kane III, was arrested earlier this week in Oregon. The Solano County Sheriff's Office says he's now a suspect in a nearly 40-year-old cold case. So back in 1987, a 6-year-old boy was found dead on Sherman Island in Sacramento County. An autopsy revealed the boy had been sexually assaulted. Another man was put to trial when the crime happened, but the case was thrown out after a jury couldn't decide if he did it or not. The district attorney says advancements in DNA technology allowed investigators to reopen the case and eventually arrest Kane in Oregon. And new tonight, another bus of asylum seekers arrived in Los Angeles from Texas. There were 45 people on the bus. 23 of them were children. People on the bus are from Colombia, Mexico, Peru, and Venezuela. More than 600 people have been dropped off in LA from Texas since June. In Washington, D.C., lawmakers have 8 days to approve funding to avoid a government shutdown. House Leader and California Representative Kevin McCarthy is struggling to get votes, even from his own party, to make that happen. So here's what you need to know. The federal government will run out of money on September 30th at midnight, as Republicans in the House are disagreeing among themselves over contentious issues like funding for border security and aid for Ukraine. The fallout of a shutdown would be felt by Americans far and wide. As many as 4 million federal workers and U.S. service members would have to report to work without pay, and food safety inspections would also be affected. And while many military and federal law enforcement would have to work without pay, members of Congress who caused the shutdown would still be receiving their taxpayer-funded salaries. A union representative for Treasury workers telling ABC News that the impacts of a government shutdown would harm people across the country, as 85% of federal workers live outside D.C. and many live paycheck to paycheck. Speaker Kevin McCarthy conceding on Friday that a shutdown would reflect poorly on the House, particularly the Republicans who control it.
I just believe if you're not funding the troops and you're not funding the border, it's pretty difficult to think that you're going to win in a shutdown.
And the Senate on standby to receive whatever bills the House manages to pass, but not feeling too optimistic at the moment either.
No. It concerns me that we are dysfunctional.
Even our constituents oftentimes think a shutdown sounds like a wonderful idea until they get in their car and go someplace and it's closed, or the service they need is not available.
All right, we have a big update tonight in the auto worker strike. Today, President Biden announced that he would be traveling to Michigan from the White House to stand with strikers of the UAW. So this comes as the union announced that they are expanding the strike to nearly 40 plants across 20 states. The number of people on the picket lines will grow to 18,000, and all of the expanded strikes are aimed at Stellantis and General Motors plants. The union says their talks with Ford are moving forward.
I do want to recognize that Ford is showing that they're serious about reaching a deal. At GM and Stellantis, it's a different story.
The union is asking for a 40% pay increase for full-time workers and a 4-day work week. Stellantis claims that they've put forward a competitive offer earlier this week, but the UAW hasn't gotten back to them yet. And there's no exact timeline for how long this could go on for, but it would only take a few more weeks to seriously impact car prices. Still to come, the product of a multi-year NASA mission is headed to Earth this weekend and landed just a few states away, where some of our country's top scientists sent a space capsule to, and what it's coming back with.
Fall kicking off in just a matter of about 6 hours or less. We do expect to see some cooler temperatures on the way when we could see our first chance for some rainfall.
And later we head to Humboldt County as we learn about the trains that help fuel California's logging industry. John Bartel takes us on a speeder car.
At one time, there were 53 independent different railroads.
All right, and the trains look a little bit different than the ones you'd expect to see today. We'll explain why. On Sunday morning, a space capsule launched by NASA a couple of years ago will touch down in a Utah desert. So the contents of the capsule are from the surface of an asteroid that's billions of years old. ABC 10 meteorologist Brendan Minchef explains exactly how the scientists at NASA pulled it off.
So this is NASA's first asteroid sample return mission.
On Sunday morning, NASA is bringing an asteroid to Earth, or at least a coffee cup's worth of asteroid. In October 2020, the OSIRIS-REx spacecraft collected about 9 ounces of the asteroid Bennu, which has been orbiting the Sun for billions of years. Amy Simon, a senior scientist at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, explains how they did it.
What we did was called a touch and go, where our sample head just barely touched the surface, blew nitrogen to loosen up the material and into the sample head, and then back away. We won't know exactly what's in the sample until we open the capsule in a clean room at the Johnson Space Center, but we were able to look at the surface for a long time. We spent about 2 years mapping it out. So we know that there's pebbles, we know there's a lot of loose regolith, which is dust, soil sorts of material. So we're hoping we get a range of sizes, actually.
It was only a brief encounter with the dusty asteroid, but the collected sample will tell us exceptional details about the composition of this asteroid and perhaps contain amino acids.
We're hoping to see organics, amino acids, the building blocks of life. There's also evidence that there was probably past hydration on Bennu, past water, even though there isn't water now, and that's all locked in the mineral structure. So these are all the sorts of things that we want to understand, because those are the sorts of materials that were delivered to Earth when it was being formed.
All right, and that was meteorologist Brendan Minchef reporting on Monday. The sample will arrive at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. And over the next 2 years, scientists will carefully catalog and analyze every single speck of dust and pebble that was brought back from that asteroid. All right, Carly, still some haze from the wildfires in Northern California, but that could be out of here by next week and tomorrow, first day of fall. That's not bad.
Yeah, it's nice to see cooler temperatures arriving, and we'll start to see an onshore flow of air that's pushing in. That should slowly but surely get most of that haze out of the area. And you know, during summer solstice, it's the longest day. We see the most sunshine as we get to summer, and that's because the sun is hitting right there, the Tropic of Cancer. When we get into winter, we get the longest nights and the sun's a little further away, shorter days. But now that we're at the equinox, think equal day, equal night in the fall and the spring. And that means we're going to start seeing slowly but surely as we get closer to winter, shorter days and less daylight. Now we do kick off autumn at 11:50 p.m. So tomorrow's your first full day. Now we do have an air quality warning still in effect. We're hoping that would be lifted for the Central Valley spots like Stanislaus County, San Joaquin, as well as areas toward Merced and Modesto. But that has been extended until Monday, until about 11:15 a.m. as we'll take a little longer to get some of that air out of the area. There's some of that, I should say, stagnant particulate matter, some of that hazy sky out. Cooler temperatures do arrive, though, into the weekend, upper 70s to mid 70s, and we do have some rain chances arriving early next week. Now, here is the origin of where we've been seeing that wildfire smoke. We're currently seeing it shift further north now instead of south, which means even though it's sitting in our area still, we'll get some onshore winds helping to push that out in just a matter of days. Currently high pressure in place that's keeping it stagnant for now, but just behind it, that's a low pressure trough that's expected to start bringing those winds, but also this as we start moving into Monday late night, 11 p.m. A long associated cold front line may be bringing us some more rain chances as we start to kick off fall. Temperatures there in those low 80s and mid 70s for the foothill spots, and the 10-day forecast bringing our temperatures into the upper 70s for the next 4 days. Early morning rain chances Tuesday morning, and then mid to low 80s for the remainder of the following week.
Next, John Bartel takes us on the back roads, and we get to go for a ride in a vintage railroad car. You never know what you'll see on the back roads. This week, John Bartel takes us on a ride down Eureka's historic logging railroad. But he's not riding on a train. He's racing down the tracks in what's called a speeder car.
Following the devastating earthquake of 1906, a massive amount of lumber was needed to rebuild San Francisco. And much of that lumber was transported by railroad from the redwood forests in Humboldt County. Felling these massive redwoods and loading them onto trains required tough lumberjacks. The job was not just dangerous, but deadly, and there was no ambulances. There were, however, railroad speeder cars.
Extreme physical labor, extreme danger. And as I mentioned, they would have these crew cars on hand if they had to run somebody back to camp.
From spring to fall, the Timber Heritage Association offers speeder car rides down different sections of Humboldt County's old logging tracks. This particular ride is along Eureka Slough.
At one time, there were 53 independent different railroads.
Tour guide Thaddeus Wu says speeder cars were like the utility vehicles of the tracks. Like their name suggests, speeder cars were not only fast-moving, but fast-acting because they generally ran on gas-powered engines instead of steam.
Steam locomotive, we're talking 4 or 5 hours to come up to steam to be able to get out on the track. Whereas with these gas-powered cars, they can just fire them up and get out there.
The Timber Heritage Association speeder car is actually a crew car, which hauled several workers up to the forest early in the morning so they could cut logs before the steam train arrived.
Traditionally, you'll see speeders are little two-person, very, very short little things.
If you want to see what smaller speeder cars look like, Joseph Oliver will show you one at the Timber Heritage Museum.
You could sit on it like this and operate it from these controls up here, and as long as you keep your feet clear of the tracks, you should be good.
Well, the museum has a whole line of different speeder cars they're restoring, and as primitive and dangerous as they look, speeder cars were much less labor-intensive than hand cars, which were human-powered and very impractical for long-haul distances.
It could be 20 miles, it could be 100. The railroads here were pretty long, and they had a lot of mountainous terrain.
Today, the Timber Heritage speeder cars are limited to the remaining historic tracks, which are only a few miles long but very scenic. Passengers get a good look at Humboldt Bay, and drivers along Highway 101 get a unique look at the speeder cars.
When we get out there, we're going to get a lot of honks and a lot of waves.
They're not as big or powerful as a locomotive, but there's something special about cruising along in an open-air speeder car.
From the Timber Heritage Crew Car Speeders in Eureka, I'm John Bartel. Hope to see you on the back roads.
Still to come, we continue our coverage of Hispanic Heritage Month. We give you a better understanding of where the terms Latino and Hispanic came from and how to use them. If you've been with us this week, you know by now we are sharing stories and celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. And you may have heard the terms Latino and Hispanic used interchangeably. And tonight we have an explainer of each word's origin and how to use each properly. Here's our Ariane Dentil.
Latino, Hispanic, Latinx, and Spanish. Who claims which label? Great question. Throughout history, those terms have been used to kick up debates about identity in these communities. However, today, according to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, the general definition of Hispanic refers to all people that originate from Spanish-speaking countries. That means Spain is an obvious yes, but places like Brazil and Haiti, where they speak Portuguese and French or Creole, well, they aren't included. Instead, according to dictionary.com, they can be considered Latino, which classifies people who descend from Latin American countries, but whose language isn't necessarily Spanish. Latino was a term that started showing up on official U.S. documents in the 1990s. According to the Pew Research Center, many Americans felt that the term was only highlighting people who descend from Spain. According to their data, the two terms were used interchangeably and appeared next to each other for the first time on the 2000 census. Now, with the 2020 census here, they have many more options for self-identifying. It's the overlap between Hispanic and Latino communities where most countries fall. Places like Mexico, Puerto Rico, Argentina, and Cuba. So what about Latinx? Well, according to Spanish grammar rules, Latinos can be a group of Latin men or women. And Latino refers to a Latin male, while Latina is the feminine version. But Latinx isn't part of the traditional Spanish grammar. But according to Pew Research Center, it's used as a gender-neutral pan-ethnic label.
And that was our Ariane Dentel reporting. And you can find more about Hispanic Heritage Month stories on our website under the Race and Culture tab. And one more thing to keep on your radar for this weekend, the 10th year of Sacramento's Farm to Fork Festival begins tonight. The event is free and runs until Saturday night. And organizers say the festival will have over 100 vendors and close down streets near the Capitol Mall. So if you're in the area, make sure you check it out. And before we go, I won't see you again until Tuesday. ABC 10 will be home to another Monday Night Football game, so make sure that you tune in at 4:15 on Monday afternoon to catch the Eagles, visit the Buccaneers. Kevin John, of course, will have your Toyota Sports Extra recap right after the game, and we will have a special edition of the ABC 10 News at 8 p.m. Have a great night. I'll see you later. Hey, it's Alex. Just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. I really love hearing from everyone, and I hope that you'll stay in touch. Reach out to me on Facebook at AlexBellTV, or you can email me at tothepoint@abc10.com, or you can even send me a text message at 916-321-3310.